Today, I'm thrilled to dive into Warhammer 40k, Space Marine 2. It's the highly anticipated sequel to the 2011 Space Marine game, and yet another addition to the ever-expanding Warhammer 40k universe, which at this point, seems to have everything, even a kart racer. To be completely honest, I'm not really a Warhammer or Warhammer 40k expert. I know very little about the lore, but I was a huge fan of the original Space Marine, and after playing this one, I'm hooked. I might just end up becoming a Warhammer fan, because Space Marine 2 is an absolute blast. This game really delivers what video games should. It's a full package. You buy it and everything's there. Simple, fun, action-packed, and it even has a bit of multiplayer on the side. Just so you know, I've been playing a review copy, and all the footage you'll see was captured on PC. Also, this review is spoiler-free, so no worries about that. Starting with the campaign, Space Marine 2 is set many years after the first game. Without giving too much away, Captain Titus is called back into action, this time to fight off the Tyranid alien threat. There's also a conspiracy that emerges early on, and there's much more going on than it initially seems. You step into the shoes of a Space Marine, a huge, armored warrior bred for battle. You're this towering figure, stomping through levels, either slicing enemies apart with your chainsword or mowing them down with a massive bolt gun. The combat feels chunky and weighty, much like Gears of War, but without the cover system. You're a walking tank, a brute, and it feels awesome. That said, there's some strategy involved in the combat. Your armor takes damage before your health, and to restore it, you have to perform finishing moves on enemies. Melee attacks are great for tearing through waves of smaller foes, while your ranged weapons and grenades are key for taking down tougher enemies. There's even a dodge roll and a parry system. The parry window is pretty forgiving, letting you open up larger enemies for a quick pistol shot or even instantly kill smaller ones. These little tactical elements really add depth to the game, and I think they're a huge part of why it's so enjoyable. For example, if a smaller enemy lunges at you, you can parry the attack, but since you're a Space Marine, you're able to grab it mid-air by the throat and slam it into the ground. It's these little details and personal touches that elevate this straightforward third-person shooter and give it a unique style. It absolutely nails that sci-fi power armor fantasy, and while movement is slower than what you might expect from a typical third-person game character like Nathan Drake, it's not annoyingly sluggish. The controls are responsive, and you always feel in control and efficient. Each melee weapon feels unique too. You've got everything from a faster, large knife to a massive hammer, each with its own combos and moves. Ranged weapons also feel distinct and powerful, and as you move through the campaign, you'll discover new weapons with unique feels and variations, which keeps the gameplay fresh. Although I played on PC, I used a DualSense controller for much of my playtime, and I have to say, the DualSense integration is really well done here. The campaign is playable either solo or in co-op, and because of that, you always have two squad members with you, either controlled by friends or AI. This gives the game a real Gears of War vibe, with your squad constantly at your side. As you progress, you get to know your squad mates, but the game does start to rely on predictable moments where you regroup and press a button to open the next area. What's both surprising and refreshing here is the sheer level of chaos and creativity in play. You're often dropped into these massive, breathtaking areas, watching hordes of enemies swarm toward you. If you've played the developer's previous game, World War Z, which in my opinion is a bit underrated with some great ideas, or even Alien Fireteam Elite, you'll have a good sense of what to expect here. Ready, clear, proceed. Got reloading. The game arms you to handle these endless waves of enemies, and it's thrilling when the action ramps up and things get chaotic. Fortunately, you can choose between several difficulty levels. Enemies explode as they charge in, with blood, guts, and particle effects flying everywhere. That said, one of my small criticisms is that around the halfway mark of the campaign, the gameplay loop, shooting, dodging, parrying, and finishing moves starts to feel a bit repetitive, a bit rinse and repeat. Thankfully, the campaign is paced well, and the introduction of new weapons and creative scenario changes help keep things from becoming stale. One moment, you're creeping through a dark hallway full of monsters, and the next, you're on a massive battlefield with enemy factions fighting, buildings collapsing, ships overhead, and tracer fire lighting up the sky. There's some amazing video game magic here. While the core gameplay is simple and repetitive at times, there are enough moments with bosses, jetpack sequences, sniper sections, and even terrifying encounters to mix it up. The pacing really stands out. That said, I did wish for a longer campaign, more enemy types, more variety. But overall, the campaign feels substantial. The story is a bit tough to follow, though you don't need to be a Warhammer expert. I'm not, but I'd recommend getting familiar with the first game's events, as a lot of key moments are connected. The game does offer a recap, but playing or watching the original helps a lot. The campaign took me around 10 hours to complete, which might not seem like much, but it's well-paced and doesn't overstay its welcome. If you enjoyed the big, bombastic single-player campaigns from the Xbox 360 or PS3 era, this one will feel right at home. And while 10 hours may seem short, the game also has multiplayer, and I actually wanted to dive into it. The multiplayer isn't just tacked on. The developers have built a solid experience that feels ready for future updates, but not in a cynical way. During the campaign, you can return to your hub ship, access a computer terminal, and switch to one of two multiplayer modes: Operations, PvE, or Eternal War, PvP. I couldn't access the Eternal War mode since the servers weren't live, and to be fair, I'm not the most competitive player, so I might not be the best judge. There are currently 3 game types available. On the PvE side, Operations mode offers 6 big, lengthy missions, and you can jump in with quick matchmaking or invite friends. Crossplay is also supported, which is a great, smart addition. These operations tie directly into the main campaign stories, where you act as the B team on the same battlefield, but with different objectives. This gets referenced throughout the campaign. I've run through several of these operations with friends, and it's a blast, running, gunning, placing bombs, and completing missions. They're supposed to add more over time for free, which is a nice touch. It's simple, fun co-op shooting with friends, offering a solid co-op experience. One thing that really adds to the gameplay is the variety of classes available across modes. This helps break up the repetitive nature of the single-player campaign. You can choose from a standard soldier, recon, sniper, tactician, shield wielder, or a heavy class. Each has its own unique feel and ultimate abilities. Personally, I stuck with the heavy gunner most of the time. He's slower and bulkier, but that powerful minigun and cool armor stand out. That's where the progression system comes into play. You can level up and customize your armor with colors, shoulder pads, helmets, and icons. There are full sets that let you really flex the Ultramarine style. The level of player expression is fantastic, and a lot of it is tied to unlocking things through progression. There's also weapon mastery, which gives multiplayer completionists something to work toward. It's surprising how much there is, considering we only have 3 PvP modes and 6 co-op operations at launch. I hope the game continues to grow. The foundation is solid, with unlocks, progression, and customization. I'm just eager for more content, and I'm fine with waiting. There are no microtransactions or in-game shops, which is a relief. Switching gears, the game looks absolutely incredible. The graphics, the tech, everything is impressive. From the number of enemies on screen to the particle effects and lighting, it all looks amazing. Later in the campaign, things get pretty wild with what's happening on screen, and your system might struggle a bit. Otherwise, I had a smooth experience with only one crash while tweaking settings. Character faces are a little lifeless, but it's a minor complaint. The real highlight is the art direction. The visual design, the style, the music, it all comes together perfectly. This game acts as a gateway into the Warhammer universe. After playing, I'm hooked. The glimpses of the larger lore, the alien races, the factions of humanity, the Imperium, the Emperor, it's all fascinating. Wrapped in this dark, gothic aesthetic with skulls, candles, cathedrals, and religious imagery, mixed with space empires and robots, it's unlike anything I've seen before. It left me wanting to dive deeper into the Warhammer universe. So, for me, this is a great game package. The multiplayer is actually fun and doesn't rely on pay-to-win mechanics or microtransactions. The campaign, though short, is exciting. Sci-fi action, a compelling protagonist, and an intriguing world. Space Marine 2 really delivered for me. But this is before you buy. You know how it goes. I give you some pros, some cons, and my personal take. Now, I want to hear yours. Let me know your thoughts on Warhammer. And if you've got any tips for diving into Warhammer 40k, I'm all ears. Thanks for watching, and if this video helped, hitting the like button really supports the channel. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time.